So thank you all so much for being here. Good afternoon. And we're going to begin by welcoming two of our students, Miss Aria Azevedo and Aubrey Medeiros, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Aria and Aubrey, for that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Brooks Bobcats. My name is Miss Sullivan, and I am the Manager of Educator Quality here at Brooks School. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone on this beautiful afternoon to recognize and honor our school's namesake, Elizabeth Carter Brooks. We'd also like to take a moment to extend a warm welcome to a few special guests and visitors to our school. First of all, we have Counselor at Large, Mr. Shane Burgo. Ward 3 City Councilor Sean Oliveira. Our school committee members, Miss Colleen DeWicki and Mr. Ross Grace. Superintendent, Mr. Andrew O'Leary. Members of the Martha Briggs Educational Club, who you all might remember as guest readers in your classrooms. And representatives from New Bedford's Hathaway Manor Extended Care Facility, Felicia Simpkins, Heidi Costa, and resident Patricia Silva, accompanied by her daughter, Susan Martin. Thank you all for joining us today. It is only fitting that in the midst of Women's History Month and following Black History Month in February, that we take a moment to recognize an African-American woman who meant so much to the city and to our school. Elizabeth's values of open-mindedness, activism, and acceptance are values we here at Elizabeth Carter Brooks School try to live out each and every day. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Lawrence, our teaching and learning specialist, who will introduce our first speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? No. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. So our first speaker today will be Mrs. Linda Gordon. Mrs. Gordon has been a longtime active and productive member of our community. She not only is a mother, wife, and grandmother, but she taught many children in the span of 38 years, where 37 of those years were spent teaching in New Bedford's Sergeant William H. Carney Academy. Since the age of 14, Mrs. Gordon has been active in volunteer work and is currently a co-chair for the Martha Briggs Educational Club and member of the MBEC, where she continues to mentor and advocate for the children of our city. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Gordon.
Greetings from Martha Briggs Educational Club. Our motto is lifting as we climb. We are honored and elated to collaborate with great professionals. Principal Mrs. Medeiros, Mrs. Lawrence, support staff, and teaching staff. Thank you for your unwavering support in February with the Martha Briggs Educational Club during Black History Month. And also in March with celebrating Elizabeth Carter Brooks, Women in History. I just want to mention my co-chair, Mrs. Annette Morton, who helped plan, my Also Planning Committee, Camille Raymond, Rebecca Jones, Mary Ann Rogers, Gail Oliveira, Lee Blake, the president of the Historical Society. We are elated to extend to Martha Briggs Educational Club. I just wanted to mention that I wanted to say a little history about Martha Bailey Briggs. Martha Briggs was born in New Bedford on March 31st, 1838. She devoted her life to the educational advancement of African Americans. As a young girl, she taught escaped slaves to read and write at her father's home in New Bedford. Her father was John Briggs, a well-known abolitionist. Martha Briggs was one of the first black women to graduate from New Bedford High School, and she later went to graduate from normal school. She began her teaching career in Newport, Rhode Island, as a private teacher to George Downey, a well-known entrepreneur. And she began her training in Washington, D.C. She became a principal at the Minor School, which is noted for training African-American teachers who, for many generations. Martha Briggs also served as a mathematics instructor at the Howard Normal School, which eventually became the School of Education at Howard University. I want to give you a little history about who we are. The Martha Briggs Educational Club is one of the oldest organizations for women of color. The club was founded in 1920 and has continued to exist for over 104 years. Throughout the club's history, our members have been dedicated to education and the role that the community serves in the community. Our members have been very proud to support the educational achievements of many young men and women, to serve as role models and mentors to generations of our youth. Some of our activities and events includes monthly meetings, membership tea, scholarship events, student scholarship awards, annual Lenten tea, Black History Month program, educational workshops, group trips, youth mentoring activities, and community service programs. And last, Sergeant William H. Carney Memorial Home is owned by Martha Briggs Educational Club. It has been maintained as much as it would be if Sergeant William H. Carney was living there today. Thank you for being, and thank you for the children in the school, and thank you very much for letting us be a part of you. And I just want to say this before I end. Maggie Lawrence, Mrs. Lawrence, she has helped so, I tell you, she was on our planning committee. She was so patient, so compassionate. I really appreciate a person of her caliber. You can tell she's a gem, and I know you love her at this school because she works very, very hard. Thank you for helping us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for, thank you for what you've done and continue to do for our community, Mrs. Gordon. Our next speaker will be Miss Medina, our English as a second language teacher here at Eliz Carter Brooks Elementary School. I knew that round of applause was coming as soon as I said Miss Medina, who will enlighten us about the life and accomplishments of Elizabeth Carter Brooks. Please welcome, which you already did, Miss Medina. Do you want this to stay?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Brooks Bobcats, how lucky are you to attend a school that has a namesake of Elizabeth Carter Brooks, such an impactful woman in our community, someone who did so much, right? I want to tell you that I'm here to share some interesting facts about her, but many of you already learned so many things about Elizabeth Carter Brooks. Last month during Black History Month, I know some of you studied her, and we have a bulletin board out front dedicated to her. So I am here just to share some additional things. Elizabeth Carter Brooks, from humble beginnings. Elizabeth Carter was born in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1867. Her mother, Martha Webb, had been a former slave owned by President John Tyler. Later on, Webb was involved with the Underground Railroad. Her daughter, Elizabeth, developed a passion for equality for her entire life, to the pinnacle of success. She was an educator, a social activist, an architect, and she was even a lawyer. Brooks Bobcats, give me a thumbs up if you know something about the Underground Railroad, if you learned something. Who can stand up and let me see. Ella, can you stand up and loudly and proudly tell me something that you know about the Underground Railroad?
So the Underground Railroad was made for black people who were slaves to go down and go somewhere safe.
Yep, they went from the south and they escaped to the north. Who knows, who is the person who is responsible for the Underground Railroad? Dominic, stand up, loudly and proudly. What's her name?
Harriet Tubman.
Yes, Harriet Tubman, right? Good job, thank you. All right, I know that some of my friends are going to know this one. Give me a thumbs up if you know what an activist is. Because Elizabeth Carter Brooks was an activist. And last month, you learned a lot about activists and activism. Fernando, stand up. Tell me, what do activists do? That's right. Activists, right? They advocate for a cause, right? They fight for change, for unfair treatment. I'd like to say our students are phenomenal. Anyway, this is about Elizabeth Carter Brooks. A legacy to be honored. Through her educational, architectural, and organizing skills, Elizabeth Carter Brooks' activism enriched the lives of New Bedford students, elderly, and people of color. To honor her legacy, the New Bedford Public Schools dedicated a school building in her name. Elizabeth's activism and accomplishments are still remembered in the city and the country. Her work lives on in the women still fighting for equality today, right? And our women from the Martha Briggs Association who still do so much for our community. So I would just like to say before I conclude that Elizabeth Carter Brooks did some incredible things during a time when women were treated not equals, and so were blacks. And yet she persevered and she overcame challenges. We know, right? She's our hometown hero, and she's a role model to all of you. Give me a thumbs up if you think that you can do hard things and that you can overcome challenges, just like Elizabeth Carter Brooks did. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mrs. Medina. For our next portion of our presentation, I'd like you to please welcome our sisters from the Martha Briggs Educational Club, Mrs. Morton and Mrs. Jones, along with student representatives from grades 2 through 5.
Who am I? I was a lawyer for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. As a lawyer for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, I won many cases for civil rights. In 1967, I was the first African American named to the U.S. Supreme Court. Who am I? I am Thurgood Marshall.
I overcame a very hard childhood to become a famous writer. I wrote a book about myself called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I read a poem about America at the swearing-in ceremony for President Bill Clinton. Who am I? I am Maya Angelou.
Okay. Who am I? Is it on? Okay. Who am I? I was an activist and a inventor. I fixed trains and I made them faster and better. They used to call me the Black Thomas Edison. After the famous inventor Thomas Edison. Who am I? I am Granville T. Wood. I am Granville T. Wood.
Who am I? I was a washerwoman before I started inventing hair products and makeup for black women. I created a company that hired thousands of people to sell my products. I became one of the first black women millionaires in the United States. Who am I? I am Madam C.J. Walker.
Who am I? Who am I? I was a seamstress in Alabama. I was arrested because I refused to give up my seat in a bus to a white man. Because of my arrest, blacks in Montgomery stopped riding the bus until the law was changed. I am Rosa Parks.
Who am I? I was born enslaved but escaped to freedom when I was 20 years old. What? Oh, yeah. I wrote a book about myself and became famous for speaking out against slavery. President Abraham Lincoln called upon me for advice during the Civil War. Who am I? I am Frederick Douglass.
Who am I? I enlisted in the 54th Massachusetts Infantry at the New Bedford recruiting station, later became the first African American to earn the Medal of Honor at Fort Wayne. On July 18, 1863, I carried the U.S. flag into the Confederate fort under intense fire, and slavery returned to the colors to the Union line, saying, "The old flag never touched the ground, boys." Who am I? I am Sergeant William H. Carney.
I graduated from New Bedford High School in 1850 and finished my work with honors, becoming one of the first girls of color to graduate from school. I set up a school in my home on the corner of Allen Street and Briggs Court to teach self-emancipated people how to read and write. In 1866, I was one of 41 educators, both black and white, who traveled south to teach the freedmen after the Civil War. Who am I? I am Martha Briggs.
In my book, Up From Slavery, I wrote about being born a slave and working my way to success. I became well known from prompting the education. I ran the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama for the school's first 33 years. Who am I? I am Booker T. Washington. I opened a home for the elderly in New Bedford, where I became the home's first president and remained in office until 1930. I was the first African American woman hired as a teacher in New Bedford and taught at the Taylor School for 25 years. In 1930, I bought the home of William Carney and then sold it to the Martha Briggs Educational Club, which continues to maintain the property to this day. Who am I? I am Elizabeth Carter Brooks.
Next up, we'd like to welcome our counselor at large, Mr. Shane Burgo.
I was going to say, thank you very much for that warm welcome. Although I was expecting a little louder cheers, honestly, but. All right, so yes, as mentioned, my name is Shane Burgo, your counselor at large, and I am honored to bring greetings on behalf of the New Bedford City Council. I am joined here with my colleague in government, Ward 3 City Councilor Sean Oliver. Show him some love. Yeah, so before I read our resolution that was offered by myself and the Ward 5 councilor who couldn't join us today, Joe Lopes, I just wanted to mention what an honor it is to be asked by the Martha Briggs Educational Club to be a part of this ceremony to honor the life and legacy of Eliz Carter Brooks, your school's namesake, especially during Women's History Month. I think here in the city of New Bedford, we are truly blessed with the amount of women that are leaders in our communities. I'm sure you see it around your school. Let's hear it for all of the women that we know in this community that continue to lead. And so my colleague will probably tease me, but I want to mention our city motto, which I don't know if it's on the oh no, it's not on the podium, but somewhere around you'll see the Latin for our city term, which is lucem defundo, which I said I won't rest until every student and every person in New Bedford knows our city motto. So it's lucem defundo. Can you say that? Very good, and that translates to I diffuse light, okay? I diffuse light, and that is what our city motto is. It's about spreading light, and I like to think of it as spreading light and spreading love. And so I think about that when I think about people like Eliz Carter Brooks, and people like all of you in this room have the ability to be a part of that legacy and a part of that motto. And so with that, I want to read this official resolution honoring the life and legacy of Eliz Carter Brooks. Whereas equality was the guiding principle of Eliz Carter Brooks, an esteemed educator, social activist, and architect whose remarkable contributions enriched the fabric of our community, and whereas born in New Bedford in 1867, Eliz Carter Brooks graduated from New Bedford High School and pursued architectural studies at the Swan Free School of Design, followed by education at Harrington Normal School for Teachers, where she became the institution's first Black graduate. And whereas Elizabeth commenced her teaching career at Howard's Orphan Home in Brooklyn, New York, before becoming the first Black woman to be employed as a public school teacher in New Bedford in 1901, where she dedicated over 25 years of service at the Taylor School. And whereas a fervent social activist, Elizabeth organized local, regional, and national groups, including her significant involvement in the Black Women's Club movement, serving as the 4th president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, and advocating for the rights of African Americans, women, and marginalized communities. And whereas Elizabeth's commitment to social justice extended to her leadership roles in the NAACP, where she championed civil rights causes and spearheaded the establishment of the NAACP's regional and local branches in New Bedford, while also founding the Eliz Carter Brooks Junior Girls Club to preserve African American history and empower young women. And whereas Elizabeth's legacy as an architect and real estate developer is evidenced in her founding of the New Bedford Home for the Aged, designing its permanent home and overseeing the construction of the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA in Washington, D.C., as well as her efforts to preserve the city's history through initiatives like the acquisition of Sergeant William H. Carney's home. And whereas Elizabeth's dedication to her community persisted throughout her life, even after her marriage to Bishop William Sampson Brooks, and a brief relocation to Texas until her return to New Bedford, and continued service until her passing in 1951, leaving an indelible mark on the city's educational, social, and architectural landscape. And whereas in 1957, the city of New Bedford built the Eliz Carter Brooks School in her honor, now therefore be it resolved that the New Bedford City Council hereby honors the life, achievements, and enduring legacy of Eliz Carter Brooks, recognizing her as a trailblazer, educator, activist, and architect whose unwavering commitment to equality, education, and social justice enriched the lives of New Bedford students, elderly, and people of color. And be it further resolved that the New Bedford City Council extends its deepest gratitude to Eliz Carter Brooks for her invaluable contributions to our community and pledges to uphold her legacy by continuing to strive for equality, justice, and opportunity for all residents of New Bedford. Offered by myself, Shane Burgo, Ward 5 City Councilor Joe Lopes, and our City Council President Naomi Carney, as well as the rest of the body. That was a mouthful. So as I read that off, it might seem as though that was a lot, right? And it was, and she was a very accomplished woman. But that does not mean that we too, in our lifetime, can't accomplish great things. Because we know that the top of one mountain is just the bottom of the next. So make sure you keep climbing, and I believe Martha Briggs' philosophy is lifting as we climb. So remember to help each other, and remember our city motto. Does anyone remember our city motto? Lucem defundo, right? Very good. Thank you all.
On behalf of everyone here at the Elizabeth Carter School, we thank you, Councilor Berger, for this resolution. Next up, thank you to the Martha Briggs Educational Club for graciously donating books for one student in each grade level. Each student's name was placed in a grade level bag, and we will be holding a raffle. At this time, let's welcome our Martha Briggs sisters, Mrs. Raymond and Mrs. Oliveira, to present the raffle donations.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have the second graders, and the winner of the first book, it's in the second grade, is Josiah M. The winner in the third grade is Mia Texera. The winner in the fourth grade is Maya Spots. The winner in the fifth grade is Rias Medeiros.
And thank all the children for being good sports. Congratulations to our 4 winners. Our kindergartners and our first graders also have books donated to them. We'll announce those winners over the intercom later on today. The winners can be seated. And thank you again to the Martha Briggs Foundation for donating those.
All right, boys and girls, ready? Last, but certainly not least, I'd like to give a warm welcome to the leader of our school, Mrs. Medeiros. Mrs. Medeiros is the epitome of what a good leader who advocates for their students should be. We know that Elizabeth Carter Brooks would be so proud of the work that Mrs. Medeiros does on a day-to-day basis. Please give a warm welcome to our school principal, Mrs. Medeiros. Good afternoon, everyone. So before I start, I do have to say you have been incredible audience members. So way to go to all of you, right? A little longer left, but all right. So we just first want to thank all of you for joining us to celebrate Elizabeth Carter Brooks. A special thank you to the Martha Briggs Educational Club for partnering with our school-based family engagement team to organize this event. And actually, Mrs. Lawrence is the leader of our school-based family engagement team, which she did an incredible job organizing all of this. In addition, we'd also like to thank all of our district and community partners for taking the time out of your very busy days to spend with us here today. As we all know, Elizabeth Carter Brooks embodies all of the characteristics that we teach our Bobcats to exhibit on a daily basis, whether it's in school or outside in our community. Brooks Bobcats, let's say it, you all know it, we can recite it in our sleep, right? At Brooks School, we know how to by being Great job. So, each month, for those of you who do not know, each month we focus on one of our roaring expectations. And during the month of February, which was very fitting as it was our Black History Month as well, our focus was on being open-minded. So we strive for our students to be open-minded leaders, like Elizabeth Carter Brooks was. Open-minded leaders are people who embrace different perspectives and are receptive to new ideas, who welcome all individuals and celebrate each and everyone's uniqueness, because that's what makes us all special. Elizabeth Carter Brooks embodied this roaring expectation in so many ways, as you've heard about today and all that you have learned in the past 2 months. One distinct way was when she founded New Bedford Home for the Aged and designed its permanent home on Chancery Street, where it opened in 1908. This was New Bedford's first organized home for the elderly. In honor of Elizabeth Carter Brooks' memory, our students engaged in a school-wide civic project where we partnered up with New Bedford's Hathaway Manor Extended Care Facility to help stock their resident store. Our school community, which consists of our staff, our students, and of course their families, came together and started a collection of items to help kickstart Hathaway Manor's resident store. We would like to present Hathaway Manor's representatives, Felicia Simpkins, Heidi Costa, and resident Patricia Sylvia, along with her daughter Susan Martin, with the collection that our school community has gathered to help you get your store started. That's your envelope with the cash donations that we did receive, as well as all of our baskets here were items that were donated from our students and our families. So all of these baskets are the donations as well to all of you. Thank you, Prince and Cayenne, for distributing those. All of us here at the Elizabeth Carter Brooks Elementary School ask that we continue to keep Elizabeth's legacy alive by being respectful, by being open-minded, acting safely, and being responsible leaders no matter where we are, within the school or outside in the community, by helping others, lending a hand to those in need, but also always staying true to ourselves while keeping in mind how our choices impact others and the world around us. At this time, this does conclude our presentation. So from all of us here at Brooks School, we'd like to thank you all for joining us today of this day in honoring Elizabeth Carter Brooks.